March 4th, 2014, President Barack Obama released his proposed federal budget for fiscal year 2015. The problem was that it exceeded the spending cap previously approved by Congress by $59 billion a year. We all know what happens in such a case. The two houses of Congress enter into long and often acrimonious debates. While they can't agree on how much the government should spend, we see shutdowns, sequesters, and shenanigans. All because of a budget cap. Caps, or limits on spending, are familiar to every person and household. Even the richest people in the world have a finite number of dollars, and you and I are faced with spending caps. Let's call them Christmas caps every year at this time. We would love to have unlimited budgets for our Christmas celebrating and gift giving, but there are limits. Life is full of limits, is it not? We limit our food and drink, our time, our involvement, our recreation, and many other areas of life, all for the purpose of living a healthy and balanced life. But Christmas in our culture has almost become the season of license instead of the season of limits. Perhaps a fresh consideration of Christmas caps will help to give renewed perspective to what we should value most about Christmas. Let me state up front, in no way am I discouraging the spending of time, talent, and treasure during this Christmas season, but I know from experience and from decades of living in our culture, writes David Jeremiah, that it is possible to see the Christmas season as a time to live and spend now, for tomorrow we die. For example, we may use our credit cards in 1 month to create 11 months of indebtedness. We may feel free to overindulge at the table and at parties, knowing we have 11 months to repair the damage. And we may push our body and soul to exhaustion, keeping up with the stress of the season. I'm not suggesting that such license is typical of every Christian, but I am suggesting that it is typical of much of our culture. And because we are surrounded by our culture, it is easy for us to be unconsciously influenced. We can all agree on one thing. Self-limiting is a challenge. Sometimes external circumstances force limits upon us. But left to our own in times of prosperity, we almost always do more rather than less. For instance, in 2008, Christmas spending dropped from what it was in 2007 because of the economic recession that began in the fall of 2008. Christmas spending in 2008 and 2009 were about the same, but then spending has increased every year from 2010 to 2013, and will likely increase this year. We were forced to cut back in 2008 and 2009, but as the recovery has progressed, so has Christmas spending. Again, we respond to externally imposed limits, but not as well with internally imposed limits. In 2008, the late Steve Jobs, co-founder and CEO of Apple Incorporated, started the secretive Apple University, a training course for employees to communicate what makes Apple, Apple. The New York Times interviewed these Apple employees who agreed to talk about the course anonymously. If you had to define what makes Apple, Apple in one word, what might it be? Simplicity might be a good choice. For instance, in the Apple training course, an instructor showed Apple employees a slide of a Google TV remote control containing 78 buttons. He then showed an Apple TV remote control that has 3 buttons. In another demonstration, an instructor shows employees a picture of a famous drawing by Picasso. Then in 10 subsequent slides, various elements of the image are subtracted, until the last slide shows the painting as a simple stick figure. The point, communication without clutter. Apple CEO Steve Jobs preached the simplicity mantra throughout the organization, and lived it as well. Jobs wore the same thing to work every day: sneakers, jeans, and a black mock turtleneck long-sleeve shirt. Every day. If you've been in an Apple retail store, you know they are all white with simple tables containing products the customers to play with. And Apple products have attracted die-hard fans because of their ease of use. I'm not here to promote Apple products, but I do support the notion of getting down to the essence of something. Can that idea apply to our consideration of Christmas in our culture? I think it can. The essence of Christmas is love. Not being loved for what we give or receive. It is giving, not the size or the cost of the gift. It is serving, not being served. It is quality, not quantity, like the Magi's single gifts to the infant Jesus. It is simplicity, like the humility of a mother and father bringing their baby into the world in a stable, laying him to sleep in a manger. Do any of those kingdom values, love, giving, serving, quality, simplicity, require excessive use of money, extravagance, or indulgence in order to have meaning? I don't think so. I believe we can express the essence of Christmas without succumbing to the pressures of this world. And there are biblical reasons to give consideration to our Christmas expenditures and involvements. Consider Paul's words. All things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. Not all things edify. 1 Corinthians 10:23. Just because we can doesn't mean we should. Wants don't always qualify as needs. Permission isn't the same as prescription. Or consider the trait of self-control, one of the Holy Spirit's manifestations of the life of Christ in us. but the fruit of the Spirit is self-control. Galatians 5:22-23. Solomon, wise yet not known for self-control in his middle years, wrote that a person who lacks the ability to say no is like a city broken down without walls. Proverbs 25:28. The greatest freedom in life is the ability to say no, the ability to do what we ought instead of what we want. Or consider those who get by in this world on very little and what we might contribute to them. Matthew 25:31-46. It is the responsibility of every Christian to be actively invested in fulfilling the Great Commission, the funding of evangelism, mission work, and humanitarian service in the name of Christ. Matthew 28:19-20. If you are reading this as reasons not to enjoy Christmas, then I beg you to read it again. I am simply encouraging you, along with myself, to prayerfully consider how we can make Christmas as simply spiritual as we can without the pressure of investing ourselves beyond our reasonable limits, and then trying to rein in the effects of those excesses for the rest of the new year. So how do we find the appropriate limits in our lives, and especially at Christmas? First, make it a matter of prayer for yourself and your family. It is important to remember that our whole life, every facet of our time, talent, and treasure, is a matter of stewardship before God, and we are not exempt from our stewardship responsibility during the Christmas season. Ask God daily to guide you through the Christmas season, making the best use of His resources for His glory. Ask for wisdom in decisions, for dependence on the Holy Spirit, for courage in your choices, and for unity within your family as you plan for the Christmas season. Second, make plans. It is the best way to control your spending in the grocery store is to make a list and stick to it. And the same can be true for making Christmas caps. Develop a Christmas budget for money, time, and involvements in activities. Ask yourself, how can I make the best use of what God has provided in terms of quality and quantity? How can I reflect the true meaning and spirit of Christmas while honoring God with modesty, simplicity, self-control, service, and generosity? Then once those plans, lists, and budgets are made, stick to them. The more we are able to simplify the Christmas season, the more able we will be to focus sincerely on the simple beauty of the Christ who was born for our salvation.